So fill to me the parting glass, and drink a health whate'er befall.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I'm a sailor. I've been a sailor since I was a little girl. I've been a sailboat racer for over 50 years. I've spent probably 25 years of that time coaching, and I'm currently an administrator for U.S. Sailing. I'm the director of adult education programs. So, yeah, so I mean, I have a pretty full life, and a lot of it revolves around sailboat racing. So, a little bit about me. I grew up sailing with family as a little girl. My dad was a sailor, my mom was not. My dad would take us cruising for several weeks during the summer on a friend's schooner that was really pretty old boat. It was beautiful. And I was probably 8 or 9 years old in this picture. My younger brother was 2 years younger than me. My older brother, 2 years older. My dad had use of one arm. And as I said, my mom was not a sailor. So the three kids were pulling up the golly wobbler and the jibs and the mainsails and doing whatever. But it was a great time. And God bless my mom, because she bought into it, and she was in the galley, and she enjoyed the cruising. But she never really learned how to sail. She ended up going down the race committee route. But my youth, I spent doing local club sailing. And then in the top picture there, I was sailing with a crew who was probably 6 years old on a sunfish. And I went on to be a good local sailor, went on to Tufts University, and ended up doing a lot of single-handed sailing as well as double-handed sailing. And it was the people that I met during my time at Tufts who really started to mentor me as part of the sailing team. But it was more than that. I realized in college that I really had an aptitude for the sport, and I was exposed to a lot of really great people, not only from other schools, but people like Dave Perry and Joe Duplin and Bill Shore and others that really helped shape and mentor my future sailing career. In the middle bottom picture is when I took on in keelboats, the match racing discipline. So in this picture, I've always been one of these people. As my career developed and I sailed keelboats and fleet racing and match racing and whatnot, I was always adventurous enough to take advantage of opportunities that presented themselves. In 2004, I was invited to deliver some electronics from the United States over to Palma, Spain, where Team Adventure was, rallying up. They needed the electronics to do a delivery from Palma to the United States, retracing the route of Columbus. And that's the picture of a 110-foot catamaran that averaged 24 knots and went as fast as 32. And we were a crew of 17 that did the transatlantic delivery. The bottom pictures, I was fortunate enough to do several Olympic campaigns. And at the time, we were ranked #1 in the world sailing in the Yngling. And then to the right, just by chance, I was invited to drive a 12-meter. And, here on Narragansett Bay, there are 12 meters out in the harbor all the time. And I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to drive one. And it was definitely an experience. Part of what I've done has been teaching and coaching. And one of the things that I've enjoyed the most has been doing women's weeks in the Caribbean, doing coaching of women on bigger boats just by chance up in Massachusetts, and coaching our Paralympic sailors for the better part of 20 years. But during that time, and as it was in the intro, I won my first Rolex Yachtswoman of the Year in 1981 when I was doing a lot of single-handed sailing. I won the fifth one 17 years later doing other types of disciplines. So one of the things I'm most proud about is the fact that my sailing career has spanned decades. I haven't been recognized for just one type of sailing year after year, but I've been able to do it in single-handed sailing keelboats together, whether it's J24s or sonars, whether it was fleet racing or match racing, whether it was campaigning in the Olympics or now as in my new physical configuration as a Paralympic sailor. What's pretty cool here is the top left picture is a photograph that was taken by Sailing World magazine when they were recognizing the top 10 women in sailing at the time. And those were the 5 Rolexes that I had won over the number of years. And in the bottom right picture, many of you from the West Coast especially recognized Dennis Conner. And it was such a joy to be inducted into the National Sailing Hall of Fame in the first inaugural class with people like Dennis and Ted Hood and just Buddy Melgus, just such luminaries in the sport. It was nice to be able to have that female representation in that original class. So one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, I'm not really comfortable talking a lot about myself. It's not what I do. But I think one of the things that has fueled my sailing career and the people that I've worked with is the power of team. Working with teams, it doesn't matter whether you're a single-handed sailor or whether or not you are, or whether you're part of a Transpac team or a crew on a maxi boat. I mean, teamwork is everything. Sailing is a game. And whether you're a recreational sailor or a competitive sailor, I look at sport as a game. It's a pastime. It's an activity that can be competitive or recreational. It's a game we get to play again and again. Sometimes we're playing just against nature. Sometimes it's against other boats. But I've seen so many people when they're cruising, whether you're going from the coast out to Catalina, if there's another boat within sight of you, the competitive juices that everybody has, you're always trimming. Can I go a little bit faster than another boat? Are we going to get to the harbor before they do, before we can drop a hook? So I always think that there's that little bit of game that we all bring to the table. And the best part of the game is we get to play with each other on board a boat or part of something bigger. There is no I in team. You can sail by yourself, but you can look at sailing with other people or against each other. And, I sometimes think you sail against each other in part of a team. If you look at the women in the bottom right-hand corner, we were all single-handed sailors racing against each other at a world championship, but being part of that United States team was something that was even bigger than what we were doing individually. This is just, examples of teamwork, whether you're racing sailboats, whether you're cruising. It takes people and more than one to do it. We usually are just working together to achieve excellence. And this was the picture that you saw in the initial advertising. And this is when I was working for North Sails. And I had we were one of the first women's teams to sail with 6 on a J24. And if you look at this picture, there are 5 women jammed between 2 stanchions. We were so practiced and together that in breezy conditions, when everybody needed to be out hanging off the rail, when we would count, when I would do a 5 count to tack, and it would be tacking in 3, 2, 1, nobody was allowed to swing their legs inboard to cross the boat until we hit 1. And nobody could believe it that we could delay that late. But it was all about teamwork and knowing when to move and knowing how to work together. But team is, again, more than just the players on board. In this was an ad for Hall Spars, and they happened to sponsor us for some match racing and fleet racing stuff. But the work that we put into our boat was supported by the welders, by the riggers, by the mast people, by the guys that did the bottom work. I love this ad because it really just showed that there was more to the team than just the sailor or sailors on board the boat. Who makes up the team? You can be a single-handed sailor, you can be on a maxi boat with 30 of your closest friends, You might have part of your team support staff. It could be a significant other. It could be family members. It could be trainers, coaches, sailmakers, mentors, financial supporters. A team could be your work colleagues. It doesn't always have to be sailing related, but when we think about the team and the importance of it, we realize there are so many people that support what we're doing, volunteers that just show up to support you. This was Nick Scandone. Nick was one of my Paralympic sailors. Nick had Lou Gehrig's disease. As his condition got weaker and weaker, this happened to be from a world championship I was coaching him at in Elba, Italy. And it was the first time he used a wheelchair to transit from place to place. And he was a very proud man. I told Nick, I said, look, your job is to get in the boat and race. I will support you. I will dive and clean your boat. I will make sure it's rigged. Your job is to conserve your energy, show up and go sailboat racing. And Nick won a world championship against 85 other sailors going away. And everybody knew their part as part of his team. In this slide, sometimes you have multiple teammates. These are some disabled sailors, and they have an able-bodied sailor in the middle who was a teammate who was helping them maximize their capabilities and abilities. You might find yourself on an unconventional boat, and this is a log canoe in Maryland. And they're narrow, they're crazy, but it takes everybody going out on hiking boards on the side. And when they have so much sail area, when you tack, the boat heads into the wind and you have to jump off those boards, run into the boat and take the board and stick it out on the other side and run to the end of the board. It's crazy, but it's all about teammates and fun. On high performance boats, you have to work as a team to make things happen efficiently and effectively. And in this picture, you might just note that as someone's putting the spinnaker pole on, the other crew is full on flat out hiking to counterbalance. A lot of times we find that if people are less experienced in practice, they'll come into the boat and relax as soon as the boat reaches the top mark. You might have team support that involve coaches or team physicians or doctors or well-wishers, people out there just cheering you on. And as we go forward in our careers, it might be coaching off the water or analyzing post-racing moves that you might have made. Part of your support network, and when you are preparing for a race or a gig, it might be improving your health and fitness. And sometimes it takes working with a trainer or having somebody advise you to be in the best physical condition that you can. And if you look at the next picture, these two sailors were Paralympic athletes. They're both on cycles. One is a double leg amputee, and the woman in the red shirt is an incomplete paraplegic. But it was super important that they took care of their bodies and had the right levels of fitness to improve their performance. Your team might also involve support people that help you prepare your boat. For some, when you listen to Allie and heard her talk about how much work she put into preparing her boat for the Transpac race, she had a myriad of people, including her husband and the guys at the yard, who assisted in making sure that that boat, the bottom was perfect, that the rigging was perfect, that the work that needed to be done was leaving no stone unturned so that their performance was going to be the best they could be on the water. Like a lot of people say, how do you put a team together? A perfect team doesn't just magically appear. They can certainly be nurtured and trained up with skill development. Sometimes people say, oh, well, if someone doesn't have certain skills, that would, make them not eligible to be part of a team. But I'm a big believer that that's not a deal breaker. People can learn and talent can be cultivated and grow. The most important part is having people that have the right attitude to be part of your team. Creating the team And this I will read from the slide. It really is about putting the right people in the right jobs at the right time. And part of that is identifying what people's strengths and interests are and what their aptitude is. And physical skills are important, but so are psychological skills and positive attitude. I would prefer 1,000 times over to sail with somebody or work with somebody that has a positive attitude and has a willingness to learn than being with somebody and having to work with them that where the glass is half empty all the time. That can be a downer for everybody else when you're putting things together. So I think it's really important to put a collaborative group together that is willing to work together and analyze and look consistently and repeatedly at where we need to be better, how we can improve our skills, and how we can collectively be better than we can. This is just an example. I work at U.S. Sailing and I manage 8 educational programs for U.S. Sailing. So as the director of adult programs, I oversee a lot and I manage 2 people that work for me. One is a competition manager who manages all the adult championships plus oversees some of the youth championships at U.S. Sailing. And she's responsible, she's the internal point of contact for all One Design sailing in the United States. The other girl who works for me is my programs coordinator, and she does the day-to-day operation and management of our keelboat schools, powerboat education, and all safety at sea training in the United States. And we train between 3,000 and 3,500 people a year. So we're generating certificates and doing all those things. But when I look at this tiny team of people, we oversee a vast range of programming, making sure that the people that are responsible for certain areas are fluid in the way we work together. And the areas of responsibility require very specific skill sets, people that can work with spreadsheets, people that can interface with other people, which is kind of interesting. These are little fun facts. These are numbers from a couple of years ago, but these are just the numbers of volunteers that the 3 of us work with every year. So we're working with 639 to probably 650 volunteers every year in our jobs. And that doesn't count the people that we work with in the office or people that we're serving in the sport. These are just volunteers that we're coordinating with as a ginormous team to deliver programs and services to all of you sailors out in the field. So it's pretty remarkable, but you have to have good team skills to be able to interface with that many people effectively all the time. What does it take to be a player? And I think these are really some basic standards for being a member of a team, whether it's a work team or a sailing team. Talent helps for sure, but having that positive attitude is absolutely critical. Being able to stick to the task at hand and not quitting when something goes wrong. If you dwell on mistakes or errors that have been made, you're already behind in your thoughts. And no team can move forward unless you're thinking and learning from the mistakes that have happened. What does it take to be a leader? Not only do you need to know what the game is or what the task at hand is, but as a leader, if you're asking your people to give you 100%, you need to be willing to go above and beyond that. You need to commit 150% to the cause. If it means rolling up your sleeves and getting down and dirty, you do it. You know, being reliable and responsible, being organized, or being the team builder, a listener, adhere to policy. You need to set the standard for everybody else. And you need to recognize maybe you're not the person that should be leading the team. Maybe you're better as being part of the team and delegating that leadership to someone else who can make the team a little bit more cohesive. And that doesn't mean you can't be the skipper of a boat, but sometimes the team leader doesn't have to be you. So I just want you to think about player versus leader. Can you be both? Absolutely. But it's really important to take a hard look and determine who's best for the job at hand. One of the important things for any team is to set goals, not only for the team as a whole, but for the individuals within the team. And motivation for people can be both tangible, maybe it's winning a trophy at the end of something, or it can be intrinsic. It can be that feeling of personal achievement or success, and that can happen within the team itself. If you're responsible for an area or a task or, organizing something and you do a great job at it, that's a success and an important stepping stone goal for the team. And I think as successful teams have done, you learn and grow with each other as long as you're setting goals that are achievable. I was invited to sail with a woman at a world championship one year, and I was talking to her before the event, and I said, well, what's your goal? And she said, I want to win the world championship. And probably a little too bluntly, I said to her, I go, well, that's not feasible. I said, that's not going to happen at this championship, because I can tell you who the top 5 are going to be right now. I said, so let's try it again. I said, what do you think a realistic goal would be? She said top 10. And I said, yeah, that's doable. So you have to know what you're capable of at any given period in time. And maybe that year, top 10 was realistic. The next year, top 5 would probably have been realistic. But sometimes people set goals that are too high for themselves based on the skills or the build of the team. And you just don't get there. And that can be very discouraging. So it's also important to know your team. What are their areas of expertise? What do they bring to the team? How do their individual strengths combine to make the team stronger? Communication is critical. If the goals and outcomes are unclear, you can't succeed. If there's confusion, there's going to be chaos. If teammates hear but they don't listen, enough said. If you get this look on people that you're sailing with, or you're trying to communicate something and it's not working, this is a bad sign. Clear communication helps maximize the benefits that the team is going to achieve. Good communication is everything from preparation through performance to knowing what to do and what's expected. And having that plan helps a team anticipate and troubleshoot what's coming up next. It helps you take advantage of opportunities that happen, whether it's on the water, whether it's in business, and allows the team members to get their heads out of, if we're on a boat, out of the boat. If it's, in a work situation, it's reading the room and figuring out what other people are thinking. We're not buried in the work itself. And positivity trumps glass half empty every time. Sometimes things are going to go wrong. You don't have a whole lot of control over it, but knowing how to troubleshoot the problem and recover from a mistake allows the team to grow and succeed. Every failure that we have or every stumbling block that we come across is an opportunity to learn and grow from. How does a team succeed? And the success of the team is so, so important. Well, there is no doubt that the success of any team is such an incredible thing. And if you've done the homework, if you've planned, if you've communicated, if you've practiced, if you stay calm in chaos and have a positive forward-looking outlook, and you don't get stuck behind in your thoughts, success is going to come. And moving forward is always the road to achievement. In the last few slides I want to share with you are images of success. This is a Paralympic team. The guy with his hands in the air is a quadriplegic. And they had just won a bronze medal in Athens. And it was so cool to see this collection of men, one who was vision impaired, one who was a quadriplegic, one who was missing, both his lower legs, and another guy who was a single amputee, work together as a team to achieve success. This was our team standing atop a podium at an England World Championship where we were racing against the men. The cool thing in this picture is the top three in an open world championship were all women's teams. We were all putting in so much time campaigning that success was a really cool thing. This was at a world championship where this team of four, it was in Dubai. It was at an ISAF combined world championships, and we did two world championships concurrently at the same time. In the morning, we would race around the buoys to starboard, match racing, and in the afternoon, we would fleet race, rounding marks to port. In the end, we ended up winning the first women's match racing worlds, and we finished second at the fleet racing worlds. And we were pretty proud of that achievement and really proud to represent the United States. But in the end, sailing and winning a trophy or winning a world championship, standing at the top of the podium, being part of a team and enjoying the people you're sailing with is everything. And those friendships are things that last a lifetime. And, when you have that camaraderie on board, whether it's in your work team at work or whether it's on a sailboat, those experiences are something that last a lifetime. And those are friendships that don't fade just because, you don't necessarily race together anymore. And finally, I just wanted to share with you the final slide. This was, I had just won a para world championship 9 months out of surgery for cancer that changed my whole physical configuration in my lifetime. I mean, I now walk with 2 forearm crutches, but I went to this world championship not to go sailboat racing. I went to this championship 9 months out of surgery for 2 reasons. The first was to prove to myself that I could be drug-free and narcotic-free. And I got off all the narcotics I was on for pain management in 3.5 weeks. The second goal for me was to prove to myself I could travel alone again. I got myself over to the Netherlands and then was surrounded by a team that supported me. The people that I lived with over there, helped me daily get to and from the boat, supported me in my sailing efforts on the water. But I could not have done it without the support of the people at home that followed my journey and were part of it, sending well wishes all the time, and the people that I traveled with and lived with and were surrounding me to make sure that what I needed to do on the water became a priority. So, just to wrap it up, being part of a team and putting a great team together, yes, it takes work. Yes, it can be a grind at times, but it is one of the most satisfying things. And in my long career of sailboat racing, it has been the mainstay of what I've done. And I've had the great fortune to sail and compete with a lot of really, really great people. And I really hope that in this chapter of my sailing career that I can mentor people the way that I have been mentored and share what I have learned over time to help you guys and others achieve and be the best. That's my story, at least for now anyway. I'm sure there'll be another chapter along the way.
Oh, the comrades that e'er I had, the sorry for my God.